All right. Smoothest transition yet. It is the Dev Talk Show on April 23rd, 2025. It's a Wednesday. I had to think about that for a second. And I'm Chris Gomez here with my co-host Rich Ross. How's it going this morning, Rich?
Good morning, Chris. Yeah, doing well. Getting back in the. Did a little bit of traveling yesterday to customers, so I'm getting slow roll this morning. Not as smooth as your intro was, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course. I was also in StreamYard a little early, going like, okay, switch here, switch here, switch here, switch here, trying to see if I can get that working correctly. Even got the mics unmuted. It would have been hilarious if we started talking and we were still muted. So everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Whether you're watching live on Twitch or YouTube at twitch.tv/TheDevTalkShow or youtube.com/TheDevTalkShow. So if you're on one of the others and you're wondering where to find us on the other, then there you know. But all replays are at youtube.com/TheDevTalkShow. And I think there's even a, I want to say there's, yeah, you see, you even know.
Gotcha.
I was going to say, I think there's even a banner for that.
We've been doing this that long that I know where you're going. So
yeah, it's actually a banner. So you can find us there. And you know, another thing is I have to be fair, I haven't checked on this in a while. We are on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn, as far as I can tell, has that extra /company. And the main reason that we're on LinkedIn is that if we get enough followers here on LinkedIn at the Dev Talk Show, then we can also stream on LinkedIn. But there's a minimum number. And we're not close.
No.
So
we haven't been pushing it either. So
it's just so.
But it would be helpful if we get there as well.
Yeah, you know, LinkedIn, they all have different kind of audiences, and there's definitely an audience that watches LinkedIn for educational content. Like it's really, it really, you know, educational developer content. Like it's really there. So, anyways, so this morning, I don't think we have any kind of. Sometimes we come to this show, I wouldn't even know what we'd call it, with like a short, like diversion segment of, hey, here's something that was in the news. Although what I probably should mention, is it what you were about to mention, is what's going on right now on the .NET channel?
No, what's going on right now? Oh yeah, that's probably it.
There's a 2-day .NET focus going on right now. Isn't that correct? Yeah. So I actually am going to go ahead and get that on the screen while I'm busy here talking. But yesterday, and I want to try to find an exciting part here, something somewhat exciting instead of talking head. But okay, so now that I've done all that, we can actually share it. There is the .NET Conf focus on modernization that is going on, and today is day 2 coming up. It's youtube.com/.net, and this was yesterday's stream. As you can see, Scott Hanselman, McKenna Barlow, and Chet Husk are talking right now. But there's some other names that we know. For example, there's our good friend Jeff Fritz.
Yeah.
And you know, they've spent the whole day talking about costs that I think, topics that aren't necessarily just, hey, here's how to do something. For example, here's the well-architected framework that's being discussed. I think there is a discussion later on. I'm not sure if like here's Jerry Nixon, right? And here we go. I know Jerry Nixon has been part of that data API builder team. I see him.
Oh yeah,
talking a lot. At least I'm not 100% sure where he sits there, but I've seen him in a lot of the videos. I'm just going to be fair. I don't know the organization, but I do know Jerry Nixon. He's somebody that I followed a long time. So lots of different topics. And I'm going to be fair to everybody watching. If your next question is, did you watch it? No, I have not watched. It was 5 hours. I haven't gotten to watch it all yet. But it's definitely something that you can check out there. So
yeah, I'm hugely interested in this because I've had a few conversations with customers, more than one. So it's not all the conversations, but I've certainly had enough where we're still running framework and it runs on premises in virtual machines, and we want to get to the cloud without spinning up VMs in the cloud, and then saying just, do things as an IaaS kind of thing. And,
data center in the cloud. Yeah,
exactly. Move everything into what we call platform as a service and take advantage of just running your app there. And oftentimes, I mean, there are ways to do it, but getting it to a more modern code base, even though .NET 8 is certainly updated and kept up to saying, getting it to a more modern code base like .NET Core, so you can run it in containers and really take advantage of the cloud, is really where that conversation goes. So I'm interested to hear how, if there are if things have improved to get that there.
I mean, if you're on .NET Framework, then you're on IIS, you're on Windows, and you're probably still in a data center. I mean, you don't have to be. No. But here's the nice thing about the .NET Core based .NETs is if you're in .NET 8, .NET 9, nobody's saying you have to throw away your data center, but it starts to lead you down a path where even if you decided we're going to still manage this on-prem, you're in a path where you can set up auto scaling much easier. You can set up, your own consumption based scale in, scale out, which might be important for your business. Yeah. Without going into detail, I will say it is important where I work. It's incredibly important. There are certain calendar days that are big. So if that's you, then, I was just going to say, if that's you, then are you, go ahead. Sorry, we did it twice. Go ahead.
We're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think for most organizations, there's some, there's typically some aspect of your business in applications where you need to take on extra load and scale out. And I think that's where, that cloud scale really helps.
Right. Or you can have a hybrid approach, to your point, where maybe you're in the data center 90% of the time, but then on those important scale up periods, okay, we'll get a little help from the cloud. Like, I guess the reason why I say that, and I'm just giving you a little insight, is that when I talk to other developers, someone will kind of frown a little bit. It's like, oh, we really don't have a need to go to the cloud. And I say, well, moving from framework to .NET 8, 9 it's not just about that. It gets you into environments that I think you will have more modern support for. First of all, you can run on Linux, where you're going to get more modern support for scale and scale out environments, just because you have all kinds of choices now. There's Kubernetes, there's OpenWhisk if you really wanted that, or something like that, and there's others that I'm not even mentioning. So just because a lot of times the conversation gets shut down, is like, oh yeah, we're happy, we're fine, we have a data center, it's great. And it's like, okay, but your operating system is still cattle. And how many, because this happens. Windows and IIS are old friends of mine. We spent many long overnights together. I got to know it really well. I got to know, but what is not, it's possible, but maybe not easy, is to get out of the organizational mindset that this server is important, and if it goes down, well, then we've got a backup server. Okay, well, is your backup server set exactly the same?
Right.
And isn't it weird that even if you're taking great pains to keep it exactly the same, when the time comes for that recovery, it's something still doesn't work? And that's not, I'm not even necessarily complaining about Windows. I'm complaining about operating system VM as your unit of deployment. Now you're trying to keep them in sync instead of, okay, the operating system's the operating system, the containers are the unit of deployment. Yeah. So anyways, we've talked enough about that. And
something we're probably not going to have to worry about with our app right away. Even though we are
not right away.
Cloud and containers.
Yeah, we definitely want to think about it later. So we do have a nice morning welcome from Markra. Hi, guys. Thank you very much for joining us, and appreciate the chat message. It's really great. So what are we doing today? So we have, if you've been following along with the series, we have been, we're creating an app that could manage a user group with ideas of administrators or people with the certain roles would be able to manage the meetings for that group. And then other people could come and sign up to come to meetups. But what we've been doing for the most part now, we're still in a very early stages where I think we've been focusing on learning how to set this up with .NET Aspire and choosing the technologies that in some respects are a little unfamiliar. For example, the three technologies, like the Blazor is the front end. There's a minimal API. I guess we could call it it's the back end for the app. And we're connecting to an Azure CosmosDB for NoSQL implementation. And we've had to learn a lot just doing that. So what's interesting now is we talked last time about, let's see, where were we? We got to where we can use the API to add. Yeah, go ahead. While you're getting set up, I suppose.
Yeah.
We can use the API to both list, get, and post meetings.
Is my screen in there?
No, not yet, but that's because here we got to add it to the stage.
Oh, add it to the screen. Gotcha. Sorry, that was me.
I forgot about that too. So we know that we can get and post.
Yes.
And I don't think we tried deleting.
We did not. I don't even think we have. Do we have a method for that? No, we don't.
No, I don't think we do. And what was kind of neat was that the get method, if I recall correctly, we just asked Copilot to write it, I think, because it was like 5 minutes left. And we said, well,
it did.
Yeah, and it did. And it pretty much got what we needed. So
yes, got it here with our select of a type meeting. And that all came over when we ran that, which was cool.
There's something I want to point. This might seem elementary to the audience, and if it is, then I'm sorry. But if you're brand new to, maybe you're brand new to .NET, maybe you're brand new, like maybe you're a seasoned web developer coming from Spring or something, or maybe Flask. I'm not sure that Python APIs are. I'm not sure if Flask. I might be showing a little age in Python there. I apologize. But so the type results. You can see it on line 43 and on line 56. This is a feature inside ASP.NET Core where they basically have these typed results extension. Well, they're methods. I shouldn't call them extension methods. Where this handles returning the 200 OK with some content. It handles returning the 404 not found. And there's a whole mess of them. The reason I want to point this out is because if you are new, you may find some older blog posts, some older documentation where for cases that are not success cases, and I don't know if you ever did this, Rich, back in MVC. And when we're talking back ASP.NET framework days, where the standard operating procedure was often to throw an exception for not found, maybe not for not found, but a lot of times for bad request, your typical 400, where you did something wrong, client. Like there's something in your request that is not correct. So I'm going to say it's a 400. And there's just no need to go to exceptions here because that's not an exceptional situation. Clients sending you a bad request is not unusual. That's normal. Yeah. So dropping all the way to exception handling, besides my general distaste for exceptions being go-tos, there is overhead that is measurable when you trigger the exception process in .NET. So
definitely
that might be really elementary for a lot of you watching, but I'm just thinking someday in the future, maybe somebody comes across this video, they're kind of new to .NET. This is how we're returning those results. And there's more customization we can do here, but this is good enough for now. We're telling it return a 404 with this message, good enough.
And I guess to your point, if we think about the one that's here, the bottom one at 56, we actually got there because of landing an exception. And that exception was really that we didn't find a matching document, right? Because we're looking for a document with that ID. And I think to your point, if I get what you're saying, is it's not necessarily an exception. It's just that maybe it should just be returning an empty set of results, and you basically.
So the not found is okay because it's okay. HTTP. We're following the HTTP philosophy of you tried to find this resource, this document. You tried to find meeting 4. Yeah. I don't have it. It's not here. It's not on this server. And I'm thinking really old school when I think about how the web was meant to be a document repository.
Right.
The REST principles instead turn that with a slight pivot to saying that everything is a resource. So meeting number 4 is not here. The correct response is 404. We're catching a Cosmos exception because that API is throwing an exception if it cannot find the item that we've asked for. What could be interesting is us looking for a different API. Right. I'm not saying it exists, but we could say, is there an API that treats this more as find this or tell us you didn't find it? Like
yes. It's almost like
the try converts. Yeah, the try. And they're becoming more common in the framework. The .NET has its legacy of .NET Framework. .NET Framework goes back to 2000.
Yeah.
And in 2000, Java was big. And I'm not trying to say the team that built .NET Framework was just taking an inspiration from. I want to be fair. I don't know what they were doing, but C# was getting exceptions. And so when you use things that were built, like if you use the data reader stuff from way back when.
Oh gosh, yes.
The standard operating procedure was throw exceptions. I am seeing more modern APIs being built for .NET are at least offering, if not standardizing, on a try-based kind of option that says, okay, you're asking me for something. And because it's not end of the world, state breaking, we don't know what's wrong, we have to blow up. It's normal for me to say, I don't have it, or what you asked for was you did so incorrectly. I'm seeing more APIs that are kind of, I don't want to call it, because they're not all try APIs, but they might be try based, where they return what you said. They return, oh, you're searching for something and I don't have it. Well, I'll just give you a empty set.
Right.
And it's just, I'm not complaining about the Cosmos SDK because we haven't looked deeply into it. This particular method is saying, read this item. Cosmos SDK is telling us it ain't there.
Yeah. And if I remember right, we were just trying to get it working at the end.
We were just trying to get it working.
Yeah. So that read part was good. And I think, to your point about putting those things in the API, you get around the fact that, there is a memory hit or there is a performance hit when you jump out to an exception. So knowing that, hey, we might not have the thing you're looking for and have a graceful way of having the code handle it is important. So.
Right.
So where we kind of left off last time is we got things connected from the API layer back to the database. We can get an item. We can push an item, or post an item. We can get back a whole collection of records. So we've got at least those first couple of parts of the CRUD kind of completed, right? We're not deleting, but that's fine for right now. And I don't know that we would delete. We would probably do something that says this meeting is kind of canceled or something along those lines, but that's to discuss later. So,
that's an interesting point, is the difference between deleting the resource and changing its status. They might be different. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that could lead to other things, right? And we can talk about those, because we haven't really talked about the full-on data model, right? We have
no, it's true.
A model that is here. And if we want to, so there's two things we could do. We could do the Blazor component and kind of really, using this rough information here for what we currently have for the meeting, sketch out the Blazor component. There is also, we could talk about, well, what should this model look like for meeting an attendee, and then use that to sketch out the component, because that will have, probably more information than what we've got here. Do you have a? I'm good to go either way. So what do you?
So, and I'm gonna throw this out there. So this is something I think, if you're new to the show, is that we didn't spend time talking about this beforehand. So this isn't some kind of script.
We're doing it now.
Yeah, is we're talking about it live. Is it more exciting to see the web page show a list of meetings and just say like, okay, we're making some progress there? Or like you said, start to think more about the data model. Now, I'm going to approach it from two directions. I'll try not to be too long-winded. I really do believe in a layered approach to applications where the data store, there's a whole architecture and design to the data store that you do independently of anything.
Yeah.
You don't even think about, I mean, yes, you might know in the back of your mind, okay, an API is going to be the thing that talks to this, but don't box yourself into thinking through the whole process, because you want these things to not only be well architected, you want them to be well architected independently so that they can stand on their own. And what you're going to naturally get, if you think this way, is you will naturally get extensibility and composability without even thinking about it. Like, so we are now at this point where you want to do the same thing then with your API.
Yeah.
And when you're working on the API, don't get too focused on thinking, okay, I mean, you're going to have to think about it, but you don't want to get too focused on thinking like, so when this particular API is called, this method, whether it's delete, get, post, it's going to do this in the database. Avoid the temptation of striking out for that as your step one. That is what you're going to do. I think the first question you want to ask is, what is the caller asking to happen abstractly? Like, what are they asking to happen? They don't know that you're using Cosmos for NoSQL. They don't know if you're using SQL Server. They don't know if the API is sending you a voicemail that you are then listening to and then writing down on a piece of paper. Like, they don't know that. And I know that's silly, but the purpose of it is to say, don't think about that.
Right.
So when the API, and then of course the UI is doing the same thing. The person using the UI doesn't know that you're calling an API. For all they know, it's just writing it to a text file on the web server. So I think what we're doing is we are sort of breaking that philosophy by kind of threading it through, because we just want to see things work. Yeah. But as far as the data model goes, I do think that meetings will probably have statuses. And it could be a meeting that's in a draft mode where someone else in the user group puts it up there, but they don't want the world to see it. So maybe there's a draft or an unlisted, but now is that a status or is that a view? And then, like you said, meetings can be canceled, which is to say that you still want it on the calendar. You want it to be seen because you don't want people to wonder what happened. To go, oh, the meeting was canceled. That way they don't wonder, should I still go? And then there is the flat out, you know what? We're just going to delete this one. And it's just going to go away as if it never happened. And all of those have different answers as to what should the API call be. What should you do in the database? But those answers could be, and I'm throwing this out there, it could be that you would delete a meeting with the delete method, because you are deleting the resource. From an API perspective, you want it to be gone.
Right.
But in the database, you might make the decision, okay, well, let's mark it in a way that we don't show it in most queries, like a soft delete.
Like a logical delete, yeah.
Yeah. This depends on your application. There are many, many applications where, and I think a lot of us work in these scenarios, where our employers would be thrilled if we never threw away data. They just might not know how to ask us for that. So, of course, you're implementing, and I'll just make something up. You're implementing a bank. You're working for a bank and you're doing the accounts. Somebody's account might be closed, but that doesn't mean it's deleted.
Right.
Somebody might actually actively say to you, I want to remove someone from this account. So now you have to ask yourself philosophical questions, like from a business perspective is, do we remove that person or do we just remove the link? And those are all business questions. You got to go back as developers and architects and designers, and you got to wring it out of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's their requirements.
Yeah. And it's hard because this is what's really hard for me, just being open about it. You don't always know what you don't know about the business, even if you feel like, so I'm making up this banking thing. I go to banks. I use cards at banks to get money out. Not as much anymore, like ever, but, and I use those, and I look at statements to see, do I have money?
Right.
I do all those things. So you think you know a lot about being a bank, and then you find out, wow, you really don't know anything about it.
Yeah. You certainly have opinions about it. It's
yeah. You find out that the business people, that are the bank,
right.
There's a lot of things, words and terminologies they use every day that you had no idea. And how you get that out of them is really hard. I don't want to say it's really hard. That's unfair. It's a challenge that we face.
It's, yeah. I mean, it's part of what we do. It's that conversation and, getting everybody around the pizza and figuring out what it is they do.
Right.
So net of all of that, I think we want to maybe take the model we have here.
Yeah.
If I understand right. And then let's just build a component that shows this.
Right.
And
yeah. I'm willing to go with that. Yeah.
Okay.
We just gave the disclaimer of like, hold on, maybe this isn't how we should build apps, but
let's think
this
way. Yeah. Which is fine. Usually we do that pre-show, but this worked out. So think about the component that we've got here. So there is in Blazor, there's a grid component. So we can certainly wire up a grid component and bring those back, but I don't think that's how we want to see this, right? I almost am thinking of is this, this content here. And I don't know if I still have, I was playing around with something, that's in a container. Sorry, not that one. Go away. Let's try that one. Maybe it was here. I'm going to take too time to find. And I'll have to get back to it. There was a drawing plugin for Visio so that you could basically draw out boxes, and that's where I was going, but I can't find it that quick. So, but essentially, thinking about this would be, essentially the definition of what would go in that component, and it might be something that is not just a record in a row of a table, but something that's got a little more mass to it on a page, if nothing else, right? Maybe it's got an image, maybe it's got a much broader title with a smaller font for the description and some information around calendar, right? So some way of designing it out so it looks interesting as opposed to just being rows in a table, which is what the grid would give us. So that's how I'm thinking about design for this.
I feel like we're probably going to have, this is interesting because what we're figuring it out is we're probably going to have a meeting component and then maybe a meetings view that I don't know that we would call the component that. So one thing knows how to display a meeting and another one knows how to display many meetings.
All the meetings. Yes. Yeah. So let's do this then. So let's bring in, I just created a folder for components. Let's do a Control-E Razor because our Blazor components are actually Razor components.
Yeah, so that's the interesting terminology issue that's always existed with ASP.NET Core is that Blazor is I don't know if I want to use the word framework because, again, I might be putting words in their mouth. I'm going to go ahead and try and look up some terminology here. And this is out of the documentation because, so they say, choose an ASP.NET Core Web UI. ASP.NET Core is a complete UI framework. Choose which functionalities to combine that fit the app's web UI needs. Boy, but then it does say Blazor is a full stack web UI framework. So Razor Pages, MVC, Blazor are the choices. They're web UI frameworks. I'm comfortable with that. But Blazor displays Razor components, which are often the term Blazor components is used, meaning that in conversation, we will often say Blazor components. You and I will do it. Yeah. And I mean, I should know better. But I even think that the team, there was a time when the team was very careful to say Razor components, Razor components, Razor components. And I think we've all realized, like, it's not a battle worth fighting. We're bringing it up because if you go into Visual Studio here and you go looking for Blazor components, you're not going to find it. So you are creating a Razor component. There you go.
There you go. Yes, so that's what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a Razor component. Or yes, creating a Razor component. I'm calling it meeting component because it's only going to show a meeting, nothing more. So let's do that. So we got our section here. We've got some code, and let's do this. I'm gonna say let's start a new chat. And we're gonna try a little bit of vibe coding. Let's see. So we've got our meeting component, and I also want to include. That's an attachment. Is this the right one? It's this one. So we include the active document. Using the meeting.cs, or using the meeting class.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot we were going to do this. I'm very interested.
Create the, how about create an interesting structure for let's see what this does. So I'm not going to use, I have some options for what model I want to use, and I'm going to choose the Claude 3.7, and because it's a little more of a thinking model as opposed to just GPT 4.0. And then what this is going to do, because I'll talk about, we're in what's called Copilot edits. So this isn't just, the Copilot chat where we go back and forth and we have a conversation around it. It will actually suggest and have a way of implementing very quickly the changes that it wants to put in place for the meeting component. So in this case, it's thinking through the steps of updating the meeting component Razor by including a parameter for accepting a meeting object, create a visually appealing card based on the layout, add property formatting, proper formatting, implement conditional style. And it's thinking through that. So you see here, it's actually going through and generating those edits for us in against those pages. And you'll see in a second what it pops up. There you go. There's our meeting component. And if I click on this, it will start to paint through and give the sections that's going to make that up. Now I think if I go into here, no, I can't. I don't see a way to open that up. Let me see if there's a better view over here. What's this one? Let's accept. All right, let's just accept. We can always roll back. There's always Control Z. So let's do that. Accept them all. And see, it didn't really give us. It didn't really give us a full. That's interesting because it's usually better than that. It didn't give us a full page. So let's reset that. Yep, that's fine.
Is there a way to look at what it was going? That's what you're doing there. Is you're looking at what it was going to do.
And that's it. It was just that one little bit. That's unfortunate. Let's reject that. Let's ask it again. Because I think it had it. It's just it. I don't know. Yeah, that's very odd. So what's this one? Will this let me rerun it? Yeah.
So these selections that you made further down, I'm kind of kicking around like where I can find some docs to include. Like if you're watching on YouTube or watching where everybody's watching in the future, is I do try to put links to documentation, and I was updating them as you were talking there.
Okay.
The term Claude 3.7 Sonnet is new to me.
Sure.
And these are just models, right? And they talk about it being the first hybrid reasoning model.
Mm-hmm.
It's state of the art for coding and delivers significant improvements in content generation. So interesting.
So just going out to the doc. So this is GitHub Copilot AI models, and we can look at. This talks about, this is in the web browser. So essentially there are different models available, right? So going to the documentation, these here are all the ones that we can basically have a conversation with, whether it's in chat or in edits. And because those are listed here doesn't mean those are all the ones that you have access to. They have to be enabled by your GitHub Copilot administrator, essentially. So they've got to go in there and say, yep, we want people to have access to the Claude models or to the Gemini models or the O1 and the O3 models as they start to come out. So those are settings that happen. So if you remember back to our list, if I go back to here and I do this, I don't have all of those. I only have a couple of them. I don't have some of the newer O3 and O4 models that are in that list, or the Gemini models. And that's just random choice to show that there is the ability to select between them, essentially. So
okay,
now that we've got this back, let's see what it wants to do. So let's try this. Iteration 1. Well, that looks better. We at least have a full section for the div and some code down there as well, which is important because it talks about
given a meeting, it looks like it's going through and interesting.
And it's got the meeting listed as a parameter, which is, an important concept in Blazor, right? So being able to pass that down from whatever parent essentially called that child component. So yeah, there's some cool stuff there. So we can take those and go back to here and do an accept. And they're much like, doing merge. These are, individual sections. I don't have to accept. I can accept them all, but I could, individually accept or just go ahead and review by hitting F8. So let's just do that and do that. Let's bring them all in. That looks good. And let's take a look and see what that is, because it wants to. Oh, it's actually putting CSS.
It's getting ready to style it too.
Huh. Oh, that's wild. All right. I love it. Let's keep it. I'm not good at CSS, so this may be a good starting point because it has some.
It's got a hover effect.
Which I certainly wouldn't include if I was doing that. So one of the things here is, we've got to go through and do some cleaning up of the code. So this does have a reference to our meeting.
So is this the meeting model is in our class library and we haven't brought it into the web app yet?
Ooh,
that's orbital.core. It's saying like, what are you talking about? So I just think it's just not in there, which there's a couple ways to do it. You can do it from Solution Explorer. You can just open the CS proj, and I'm not telling you which one to choose. I'm just pointing out that there's so many ways to do this.
And I like this one because I think it's cool. I'm just going to take the mouse and drag it on here.
Yeah, we were actually told about that the other day, is just drag the project down to the other project, which is, that's just the way I'd never done it before. Right? Yeah.
Cool.
So, okay.
1 second.
Now,
cool.
So we have a meeting component.
Yes. And let's just check the code down here. Let's just walk through the code because this is
right.
We should look at it and see what kind of gets put in here. So there's actually a get duration, which is interesting, right? So being able to show, hey, not only start time and end time, but how long is this meeting that we're essentially signing ourselves up for? So we've got a way to pull that. So I'm guessing somewhere up here is code that, excuse me, format date. There you go.
Look at that.
Get duration piece, right? So that's going to be up there. And then
and it's formatted smartly too. Yeah. To be like, hey, if it's over an hour, we'll include hours. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, with this section here, that's perfect. And then format time range, return. Okay, so much like you think about with any kind of a meeting, what does it start, when does it end, and having a I guess a display when we think about so this here having this, it's even got a little. Let's see if we can see that here.
Yep.
It's even got a little clock emoji and a calendar emoji.
Yeah.
So very cool. Or icons, I guess they're more appropriately called. So this is cool. Yeah. So now that we've got this Razor component, we can, I think the only way we can see is we have to put it in a page, right?
We got to put it on a page, yeah. Which could be the home page. It could be its own page. I don't know that it matters too much. We certainly know that we're going to be in here tidying things up, but there does have to be a Blazor page that we put a component on, if not all of them. So it could be, we could make a meetings page, or we could say we could put it on the home page for now. Doesn't matter.
Uh-oh.
You're all right. Just rename it. I don't think it's a big deal.
Okay, we go here. Component. Did I bring? Well, it does. It is a page is a component, right?
Yeah, right. So all you got to do to make it a page is to put a page directive. Thank you. I was trying to remember what the word was, and there it is. It's pointing to /meetings. That'll be fine. We've got to do a few other things in order to give it. Oh, that's cool too.
Interesting,
look at
right?
that. It's suggesting using the
that's
meeting
a
ID
page, though, right?
Yeah.
Unless you make that optional, and if it's there, it shows it. If not, it doesn't. But I don't think that's how we want that to work.
Maybe eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe eventually. So, but that's cool. There's a couple other things we have to do to make it navigable. And if you want to do that now, we can. So we would go into the nav menu.razor, which is well, to make it navigable in the default templates, that is. So the nav menu.razor. Yeah, go ahead.
All I did was I hit Control, comma, and that brings up the code search, so I can see, instead of going through the Finder on the left, I can just basically really quickly do that, and it brings up. Where'd it go?
Yeah, I agree. Try it again.
I should probably try that one. There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
So in here, this is the page this is the component that's basically the nav bar that starts on the left. And right now there's a counter, a weather. If you want to add a meetings page, you can just grab one of those divs, cut and paste it. It's pretty straightforward. And drop it back in there. Set the href to meeting, because we called it meeting, or we called it meetings, or whatever we said the page directive is. Okay, perfect. And then you'll want to change the on line 19 at the very end. That's going to be what shows up in the meeting title. Now, I think there's a way to add an icon. We could look at that later.
Cool.
So that at least will get you your menu. Yeah. So now we can navigate to that page. The key now is we need to display that component. And I suppose there's like the easy way to do it is to just create a meeting component and splat one out there. But we could also, let's make the API call.
Even if we just call one.
Right.
Right. Although it's saying private list of meetings.
It's fine. It's going to need a reference to the orbital core, which it'll do for you.
Cool. So there's that. Uninitialized, because we want to do this when it starts up.
Right.
HTTP client, API meetings. I suppose that makes sense. I'm thinking, that's fine. It's
So I think the issue there is
mm-hmm.
that
It's scrunched too much together.
no, that's an extension method, get from JSON async.
Okay.
And so it's easy to get that confused. I think the easier way to do this is let's go to the top underneath page and let's inject the HTTP client component. So to do that, yeah. Oh, there it is. Now it could be called HTTP client. That'll be fine. Now you should be set. It doesn't matter what you want to call it. But you're right. Once you get that naming, now you got to change because you decided to call it client, you have to change. You're fine. The call itself is fine. It's that you change the name of it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So get from JSON async should be in here. Right. Cool. So what makes this a little confusing is get from JSON async is an extension method. And so what happens is if you just try to call it out of HTTP client's going to say, I don't have that. But system.text.json extends it. And I'm trying to remember exactly how this rolls down, but the client that you inject from Blazor, I think, includes system.text.json extensions. I think somebody's going to find out that I'm wrong, but I think that's what I discovered in the code, because I was kind of like, why does this work?
Yeah.
That was
I was just like, why does there's anything in there? Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it complaining about?
Good question. What is it complaining about? Possible null reference in meeting.
I suppose that's possible. I guess what they're saying is that get from JSON async might return null.
Is it? No, it's not that. It's question mark, right?
Well, I think it's more that the list, they're saying that get from JSON async could return null. And if it does, then trying to fill a list meeting is not going to be what you want. In fact, I think what will happen is meetings will come out null, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not positive about that. So, or the meetings API itself could return null instead of returning a list. There's a lot of things that could go on there. So what I'm curious about, though, is if we have to set up the HTTP client at all.
That's interesting.
I'm not sure.
It doesn't.
If you go to Program CS for the Blazor app, because there's several Program CSs since we're sitting here and since we're in an Aspire-based orchestration.
Yep. So there's this.
So an HTTP client has been added, right? Mm-hmm. And it's already been set up to point back at our local host, essentially, or whatever the base address is for the app.
Okay.
And that's a feature of Blazor WebAssembly. We don't have this in Blazor server. We can't simply ask the host environment for the base address, but we can do it in Blazor WebAssembly. And if the why of that is because Blazor WebAssembly is running in the client of an already surfaced website. So it can just basically look up at the browser and say, what host are you again? Oh, you're whatever.com. So.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. So to that end, I don't know that we necessarily in the app host wired up the API to have a reference, or the web to have a reference to the API.
That's oh yeah, because it's a different. Yeah. So the reality is you may need a different service for this, right? You may need a service that knows how to talk to the API. I wonder if, here's what I'm curious about. Can GitHub Copilot Chat look at our app and generate an HTTP client in the Blazor app that would call the API? Like, can it look at it from that level and say, okay, well, here's what the Blazor app needs in order to talk to this web API right in your app, well, in your solution?
It should. Yeah. I guess. So we need to give it context.
Right.
And then it isn't necessarily the active document. Well, I mean, if we don't,
Well, I would put the program CS for Blazor, the Blazor web app. I'd set that as active.
Okay, then let's do that there.
I'm
then
not saying I know how to use
No,
this
you're
thing.
fine.
And then my question to it is that I need to add an HTTP client that is ready to call the Orbital Web API. And I don't know if it can figure that out in this solution.
It's the Orbital API, not the Web API.
Oh, right? We called it Orbital API. Okay. To call the Orbital API in this solution as a scoped service, I guess. I mean, I'm asking a lot, right? I'm just asking it naturally. I'd be really curious because this kind of boilerplate where you do it 1,000 times and then you still have to go look it up every time.
Yeah.
I think this is a real interesting opportunity for GitHub Copilot Chat to, it's helping. Like they say here, configure the base address for the API client, register the HTTP client with the appropriate service lifetime, optionally add a client factory. So right. Interesting that iteration 2, it went for. Oh, I see. That's how to use it. So let's see. Yeah. So program CS, let's see what they said to do. Oh, wow.
And which is kind of what we had, right? That line 10 was there before. It added the comment,
right?
But other than that,
that one though, I don't think we want to touch. This is a different service, I think.
Okay, so we're just fine with accepting the comment there. Now this one here is a client for the Orbital API communication, and I added it this way. Interesting that it's got, it's called out the URL.
Yep.
Which isn't what we would do. We would just say, Orbital API, which I think is what we called it.
You're right.
So it's doing the whole is development thing.
It created a keyed service. That's what it did. See that?
Like we talked about with the CosmosDB.
It created a keyed service called Orbital API. And then they say, here's an alternative using a typed client. Okay. All right. Yeah, to your point, it's interesting. I think it's complete. It's definitely a complete answer. That's cool.
Yeah, but isn't this what Aspire is supposed to give us by pointing to that other, by wiring up the app host?
Yeah,
having to do
we shouldn't have to do that every time. So, but I will admit that this is one of those things where you see it and then you just say like, oh, now how do I do this again?
So we can accept it and comment it out if we need to.
Right.
All right, let's do that. Although I think this here really should be.
I think it could be changed. So.
Right. That's. We don't really have something like that yet, but that's going to be more production wise kind of thing.
Right. So named endpoints, the named endpoints topic, when creating an HTTP client here. So the interesting thing here is I'm not sure that we can use this method. I'm wondering if this is a case where I don't know where this method comes from. Maybe find some open space to see. For some reason, it's complaining about service key too, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. If you say builder.services.add HTTP client, I'm wondering if this is a extension method out of out of Aspire.
Add HTTP client.
Yeah. See, I know it's not coming up, and that's why I wonder if this is an Aspire based, and that there's something we've got to add. Interesting. So I think the reality is this something we have to add?
I think, let me get rid of that for a second. Yeah, and it may be failing for another reason, right? It didn't even recognize builder, and I think it's because of the service key in the middle.
Oh, right. I see what you're saying.
I'm almost thinking we need this, right?
Oh, with endpoints or with reference? Oh, I see what you're saying. We haven't done that yet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We have not yet. It just wasn't quoted. That's why it's complaining.
Yeah. Well, it's not quoted because we need to do. How about underscore? There we go. Now everything's together.
Okay.
That
yeah.
Flows into, right. It's just like we did with the Cosmos, right? We had to give it some kind of an object to say this is what we're referencing.
So now the front end has that reference. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
So with that, we should be able to go back to here and I guess
maybe comment that out for the moment. I think.
Yeah. Because I kind of get what they're getting at, but I don't think that's the right way to do it. And then go back to here. And builder still.
Actually, I think we just weren't watching the chat because I think Alan was saying what you just said.
There you go.
As you can see, I wasn't watching it. So, no, but thank you very much for that. That's good. I'll leave it up so that people can see.
This doesn't make so something's amiss up here because this is all. Everything is now getting weird. I don't see. I mean, this was there to begin with, so I don't see anything wrong with this.
So the other thing that we may still have to do is I feel like in the Aspire setup, I'm wondering if we still have to expose the endpoints.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, this is a good point. I was just trying to decide if we can just use that HTTP client and it'll just work. I think it will.
Line 10 adds a client. So basically
the client that we already had.
Inject that. Okay.
Which we already have injected.
I already have injected. Yes, here.
Yep. That's the one that I believe is getting injected in the meetings page right now. It's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
And the only thing this is complaining about, it's just complaining that you might get null back
Have
here.
a null.
Which we should deal with, but it's just simply saying, I don't want to. And look, I'm a big fan of war on null reference exceptions. Like we don't want them, but I think that's the main complaint. We're not getting this isn't going to work, whatever. So the question is this going to call localhost? Well, my issue has been that we're not necessarily calling back to. We're calling to an API that's on a different endpoint. It's a different port.
Yep.
So I wasn't sure that that was just going to work, or if we needed our own HTTP client that knows how to reach it. And that's where I'm a little confused as to.
And that's why I don't think this works.
Yeah.
Because the host environment is the host environment for the web, not the API.
I mean, I suppose the worst thing that can happen is you run it and it doesn't work.
Okay. And then I'll come back and then we'll come back and drop in what I think it might be.
Okay.
So let's do this. Oh, everything built. Sorry. There we go. Do that. First unit test. Cool. All right, we got a page. We got a meetings page. And we got a meeting.
And we did blow up somewhere, right? Because at the bottom you have unhandled error has occurred.
Oh, to reload the page. So yeah, we didn't do a breakpoint. So here. And we also didn't catch the exception, which would have been helpful. But let's just reload it and see what we get. Cool. We landed. Oh, and it didn't catch anything. Okay. That's odd. All right. Here's, well, we know it failed. What I'm thinking we need to do is do this. Sorry. Oops. Possibly. Let's try that.
So what I'm thinking, well, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I got to put that in something so that we see what the error is, because we're not seeing anything right now.
Okay, go ahead. So here's what I'm thinking is that.
Go for it.
API service is defined. An API service is defined in our Aspire orchestration, because we have that with that project. I don't remember. I think we're calling it Orbital API. And that, yeah. I think what we need is, an HTTP client that's pointing to the address of that service, which there is Aspire notation that we can use.
Okay.
But I'm interested to see what happens here. If you halt on that exception, we can at least take a look at it. Because what I think it might be, well, I don't know. I guess I don't know for sure exactly what it's doing.
That's interesting. I don't remember seeing those icons before.
Right. I don't remember either now, but they're cool.
All right, let's go here. Meetings. Code's going. Let's just run the code. Boom, catch exception. Failed to fetch.
Yeah, you didn't even get a whole lot of help.
No, just that. It failed to fetch, whatever that means.
Can you hover over that client still, or is it out of scope?
It should be now at a... Oh, there it is. Okay.
Because I'm curious what it's pointing at. See, that base address is going nowhere.
Okay.
So I think that's part of the issue. So
it's got...
if you head back to Program CS, this scoped client they give to us, it's fine. So what we can do, although there's a couple ways to do this, we can add another client. That's why.
Well, I think we just need to figure out what the base address of this one is, right? I mean,
sure. So okay. Orbital API is the reference from. Right. That's the reference from I can't remember what we called it in Aspire. It's Orbital -API.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you have that.
It should be this. It should be this term is what we should be pointing at.
So there is actually some documentation creating HTTP client, but they use this nomenclature that basically it's service discovery scheme resolution. I don't think this really has anything to do with Aspire, where you would basically say HTTPS plus HTTP : but the reality is I don't know that has anything to do with Aspire specifically.
Oh, let's take a look. Because I did ask the question. Let's see.
We did say the with reference to the API service. We did that, right?
Yes.
Technically, you could also wait for that API service, which I guess isn't a bad idea. And what I don't know for sure is I have to look up exactly what this is. Is with external API, with external HTTP endpoints.
Yeah. Oh. But that's yeah, I think that's fine. You mean, but that wouldn't be here. That would be back on the
back in Aspire. But the thing that I'm trying to figure out is why. I'm a little confused as to why. It's why you would put that on the web model.
Really?
See, that's interesting. Oh, for that one, I guess I can believe it. I'm looking at a different example where they use a typed HTTP client, and I'm wondering if that's part of the difference.
Yeah. So it's so we are a little bit new to kind of doing this in an Aspire manner, right? We would have just pointed this to localhost : something. So let's give this a run and see what that does.
Well, yeah, it's just interesting that I see an example here where they use the. I wonder if it's because it's named endpoints. I wonder.
Well, the service discovery should be popping that in, right?
Mm-hmm. There's a different sample here where they use that, and I'm just not sure. I feel like there's something else going on, but.
That didn't even get here, and it blew up. Yeah, we're 9 o'clock. I gotta get moving.
Head back to Program CS.
To the
there's something that
CS.
Oh, I'm sorry, the .NET Aspire one. I forget that we now live in this world where there's different ones.
Yeah.
The web project has a reference, but what I find interesting is, I guess the front end doesn't necessarily need it. Oh, okay. So named endpoints with HTTPS endpoint. So that's not necessarily it. So yeah, there is something that we're missing here to get it to create an HTTP client that talks to the Orbital API.
Yep.
I'm a little curious though about disturbing that client. I wasn't sure if that client was important in Blazor WebAssembly. Yeah, because that's the one that comes in the box.
Yeah, but I mean that was working fine before we even put that one in.
I just wonder what else has been broken in the app, but I guess probably nothing.
Yeah, because we could take this out and the app itself will still go.
Well, I didn't think that. I thought line 10 was there the whole time. Like that's what came with it, I thought, but maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I have to go look. Yeah, it was there. It's the one that comes out of the host environment base address. And my concern is that
now we've messed that up.
Yeah, but I think that might be there for a convenience so that you can call back into the WebAssembly app. And in fact, maybe see, we're probably going to have to do that anyway at some point. I could be wrong about that. So, because one of the things we'll have to think about long term is because this is a Blazor WebAssembly app, do we want it directly calling the API anyways, or is it going to come back through the WebAssembly app to like essentially a backend for front end so that they can carry your user information with you? Or do we just say that when it calls the API, that information maybe is in a cookie? Like that's another possibility. So, all right. But unfortunately, like you said, we both have appointments to get to. So we didn't quite get this finished today. But
we'll have to wait till Friday to see what this looks like.
Oh, that didn't do what I wanted. All right.
There you go.
That did.
Cool. Thank you, Alan, for coaxing us in the right direction. I appreciate not giving the answer right away and letting us try and find it, because that's kind of why we're here. But we're close. I think we're definitely close.
Yep. All right. Well, awesome. And yeah, for folks watching, we are planning to try and get back together on Friday and continue on this, and then get some meetings shown on the page, which at least gets us in the right direction. And then we'll have to continue from there, thinking about things like the authentication, because only certain people are going to be able to do these things, and making sure that somebody just doesn't start calling the API directly.
Right.
So we'll have to work. I mean, the API has no authorization on it right now either. So we've got work to do. So in any case, all right.
Love it. Yeah. So full answer to come Friday, one way or another. So.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, everybody, it's 9:05 here on the U.S. East Coast. So hopefully you have a great day, no matter where you are and wherever you've joined us. Thank you for joining us. And for Rich, I'm Chris. I almost thought I said that backwards for a second. And we'll see you all next time on the Dev Talk Show.